I'm a 34-year-old guy, and this story still makes people's jaws drop when I tell it. Not because of the betrayal, although yeah, that part's wild, but because of what came after. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to say no to someone's literal life or death situation, especially someone I once loved. But when you've been used, lied about, and publicly humiliated for trying to do the right thing, something inside you breaks in a way that doesn't really heal. So yeah, here's how my ex, Emily, turned me into the villain who abandoned her during cancer treatment, even though I gave up a kidney to save her. We met when we were both 26. She worked as a radiology tech at the same hospital where I did maintenance. She had this way of making everything feel lighter, like even the dullest Monday meant something. I was a pretty quiet guy back then. I didn't have a ton of friends, didn't really do the whole bar scene. Emily was the first person who ever made me feel seen, like genuinely seen. She'd stay behind after shifts and sit with me in the cafeteria, joking about patients who thought X-rays gave them superpowers or doctors who acted like they were gods. We started dating fast. Within a year, we were living together in this small apartment outside of Pittsburgh. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like ours. She'd come home tired, curl up on my lap, and talk about how she wanted to go back to school for nursing. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the person I'll grow old with. Then came the diagnosis. It started with fatigue, bruises, a few fevers she brushed off. When she finally went to get checked, it turned out to be kidney cancer. I still remember sitting in that sterile room, the doctor's words bouncing around like static. Malignant, stage 2, surgery, transplant. Emily was terrified. I was too, but I couldn't show it. I promised her I'd be there for everything. I meant it. The surgery removed one kidney, but her other one started failing over time. She went on dialysis. I got tested without her even asking, and when the results came back showing I was a match, I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about the risks, or the recovery time, or what it would do to my body. I just wanted her to live. I remember how she cried when I told her. Said no one had ever done anything like that for her. Said she didn't deserve me. Maybe that was the first time I should have known something was off, because she kept saying that. Over and over. I don't deserve you. The transplant went well. The doctors said her body accepted my kidney beautifully. I stayed by her side the whole time, even though I was still weak myself. I'd bring her flowers from the gift shop, hold her hand while she slept. She'd wake up groggy, mumbling, "You're my hero." I thought we'd made it through the worst. But as she recovered, things started to shift. She got distant, more irritable. I figured it was just the medication, the trauma, everything she'd gone through. I tried to be understanding. Then one night, about 2 months after the transplant, I walked into her hospital room after hours. I'd gotten special permission to visit, and she wasn't alone. She was kissing her nurse. It wasn't one of those misunderstood moments. It wasn't some emotional, last day of treatment thing. It was intimate. I froze in the doorway, holding this stupid little stuffed bear I'd bought her earlier that day. They both looked up, and she went pale. The nurse, some guy named Matt, had the nerve to say, "It's not what it looks like." I dropped the bear, turned around, and walked out. I don't remember how I got to my car. I just remember sitting there for hours, feeling this kind of silence I can't even describe. Like the world had gone completely still. When I confronted her later, she tried to spin it. Said she felt lost, that Matt understood her trauma better than I did. I asked her if that was before or after she took my kidney. She just started crying and told me I was being cruel. I moved out the next day. What I didn't expect was what she did next. She went on Facebook and told everyone, her friends, her family, even people from our hospital, that I'd abandoned her during cancer. She said I couldn't handle being with a sick woman. People started messaging me, calling me heartless. My own mother asked if it was true, and I couldn't even defend myself, because what was I supposed to do? Post my medical records online? Prove that part of my body was literally keeping her alive? It felt dirty, like something you shouldn't have to prove. So I stayed quiet. She moved in with that nurse, and I heard through mutual friends that they were thriving. Meanwhile, I was trying to rebuild my life with one kidney, half my energy, and this burning sense of betrayal that wouldn't go away. I thought I'd never hear from her again, but 2 years later I did. She called me on a Tuesday morning. I still remember the way her name flashed on my phone, and for a second, my stomach dropped. I almost didn't answer. When I did, her voice was soft. "Weak," she said. "I know you have every reason to hate me, but I need your help." Her body was rejecting the kidney. My kidney. The doctor said she needed another transplant, and somehow, after all the testing, I was still the only viable match. She asked me if I'd considered donating again. And that's when everything in me, every quiet, decent, forgiving part, finally stopped trying to be the good guy. I said no. Not loud, not angry, just steady. Final. There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, "You're really going to let me die?" I said, "You already killed me once." And I hung up. The morning after I told Emily no, I woke up to about 50 notifications on my phone. Missed calls, texts, Facebook messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. My heart sank before I even opened them. I already knew. Her family had gone public. Her sister had posted some long, tearful status about how a selfish ex-boyfriend was choosing to let Emily die despite being a match. There was no mention of me donating my kidney the first time. No mention of the affair. Just a narrative that made me look like a monster. A healthy man refusing to save the life of a sick woman he'd once claimed to love. And people bought it. Hard. Friends I grew up with were commenting, saying things like, "How could he do this?" And "I hope karma finds him." My work email even got flooded with messages from fake accounts telling me I was a murderer and worse than scum. One guy from my old high school DM'd me, saying, "I always knew you were a selfish prick." It felt like someone had set my life on fire overnight. At first, I tried ignoring it. I told myself the truth didn't need defending, that I didn't owe anyone an explanation. But the calls didn't stop. Emily's mom called my work phone while I was on shift, crying so loudly I could barely make out the words. She said Emily was in the hospital, that she was running out of time. She said, "You're the only one who can save her." I hung up. I sat in the staff bathroom for 20 minutes after that call, staring at the floor, my hands shaking. I wanted to throw up. Not because I was doubting myself, but because a part of me, the part that still remembered Emily's laugh, still remembered how she looked the day I first kissed her, was screaming at me to give in, to be the bigger person. But then I'd remember the hospital room, the stuffed bear hitting the tile floor, her Facebook post about me abandoning her, all the nights I spent bent over the toilet, vomiting from the painkillers after the transplant, alone, while she was off starting a new life with the man who'd been holding her hand in secret. And it was like a switch flipped. 2 days later, a hospital administrator called me. A hospital administrator. Not a doctor. Not Emily herself. Someone from the ethics board. He was polite, careful, but his words were a knife wrapped in silk. He said, "Mr. Reynolds, we understand you have a unique history with the patient, but we'd like to appeal to your sense of compassion." I cut him off. "Are you calling to tell me I'm legally obligated?" He hesitated. "No, of course not. Organ donation is always voluntary." "Then don't call me again," I said, and hung up. But they did call again. And again. Emily's new boyfriend. Yeah, the nurse sent me a long text that started with, "I know you're hurt," and ended with, "Don't let her die out of spite." Like he hadn't been the one literally making out with her while my body was still recovering. Like I was some cartoon villain twirling my mustache, thinking, haha, let her die? What they didn't understand, what none of them seemed to get, was that I wasn't angry anymore. I was empty, drained. There's a difference. When you give someone a part of your body, you're not just giving them flesh. You're giving them time, years of your health, a piece of your future. You're signing up for shorter runs, stricter diets, higher risks later in life. You're giving up a safety net. And I had done all that already, without hesitation. Emily had spent 2 years telling everyone I'd walked away from her when she was sick, never once correcting the story. She'd let me be crucified online. She'd build a life with the man she cheated with, a man who also happened to be a nurse, a man who could have, at any point, gotten tested himself or used his connections to widen the donor's search. But they didn't. They just came back to me, like I was some kind of spare parts bin. By the end of that week, my boss pulled me into his office. He shut the door, looked uncomfortable, and said, "I'm not supposed to bring this up, but we've been getting complaints. People are calling HR saying you're a killer." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It came out harsh, like a bark. "So what? I'm supposed to donate again to make the internet like me?" He didn't answer, just shifted in his chair and said, "Maybe you should take some time off." So I did. I used up my vacation days and stayed in my apartment, curtains closed, phone on silent. I watched old movies, ate whatever was in my pantry, and tried not to check social media. But I couldn't fully disconnect. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and scroll through her family's posts, their updates about how Emily was fading. Each one felt like a brick pressing down on my chest. Then, one night, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, it was Emily's father. He looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders hunched, eyes tired. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just stood there with his hat in his hands and said, "Please, she's my daughter." I stepped aside and let him in. We sat at my kitchen table for almost an hour. He told me about the hospital bills, about how Emily was scared. He said he knew what she'd done to me, that he'd told her she was wrong. He said, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for mercy." I looked at him and wanted so badly to feel something other than this dead weight in my chest. But I didn't. "I gave her mercy 2 years ago," I said quietly. "I gave her my kidney. She spent the next 2 years making sure I'd never have a shred of dignity left. And now you're here asking me to let her do it again." He bowed his head. After a moment, he nodded like he understood. He stood, thanked me for my time, and left without another word. When the door closed, I sat there in the dark for a long time. It was the first time I realized Emily might actually die, and that I'd be the one who'd have to live with it. If I thought the worst was behind me after Emily's father left, I was wrong. The real storm hadn't even started yet. About a week later, I was grabbing coffee from the place down the street when I saw it, her story, on the local news. They didn't use my name, but it didn't take a genius to connect the dots. The headline was something like, "Local woman desperately seeking kidney after ex-boyfriend refuses to donate." They blurred her face, but people knew. Small town, familiar voices, social media breadcrumbs. It spread like wildfire. Within a day, I was getting tagged on Reddit threads, Facebook comments, and local gossip groups. Everyone suddenly had an opinion about me. At first, I just stared at the screen in disbelief. Then I laughed, because it was so absurd. I gave her one of my organs. One of my organs. And somehow, I was being painted as this heartless monster withholding a second one out of spite. The next morning, my landlord called. Apparently, some activists had shown up outside the building. They had signs. Signs. Stuff like "Save Emily" and "Don't let pride kill love." I had to sneak out the back door just to get to work. It felt surreal, like I'd slipped into some alternate version of reality where facts didn't matter anymore. People didn't care that I'd already saved her once. They only cared about the part that looked bad on camera. Then my phone rang again. It was a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, it was some reporter from a national outlet. She sounded chipper, rehearsed, the way people sound when they've already written your story before hearing your side. "Mr. Reynolds, we'd love to give you the opportunity to share your perspective," she said. "Would you be open to an interview?" I asked, "Are you going to mention that I already donated once?" There was a pause. "We'd have to confirm that independently," she said, like it was some baseless rumor. I hung up. That night, my mom called me. We hadn't talked much since the whole breakup mess. She's one of those old-school women who still believes in church bake sales and neighborhood barbecues. She sounded nervous, like she was walking on eggshells. "Ben," she said quietly, "your aunt sent me that article. Is it true?" I felt the anger rise in my throat. Is what true? That I saved her life once and it wasn't enough? She sighed. "You don't have to yell. This isn't who you are. You've always been a kind boy." That was the part that broke me. Because she meant it as reassurance, but it hit like a punch. The implication that I had to prove my kindness again. That doing one good thing didn't count because the story wasn't convenient anymore. For days, I didn't leave my apartment. I ordered food delivery and told work I was sick. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I couldn't even walk to the mailbox without scanning for cameras. Then, one afternoon, I got a letter. A physical letter. No return address, just my name scribbled in shaky handwriting. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper. It said, "You did the right thing. I saw what she did to you. Don't let them rewrite it." No signature. Just that. I don't know why, but that one little note grounded me more than anything else. It reminded me that not everyone believed the surface-level story. That somewhere, someone actually remembered how things went down. Still, the pressure didn't stop. The hospital's PR department started leaking statements about ongoing discussions with a potential donor, clearly implying that I was the holdup. Emily's boyfriend made a TikTok. Yeah, an actual TikTok. where he cried on camera about watching the love of his life fade away while the one person who could help refuses to do the right thing. It got hundreds of thousands of views. Comments flooded in, calling me everything from a narcissist to a sociopath. People even found my LinkedIn. They spammed my company's page demanding I be fired. My HR manager called me in for a conversation about public image. I sat across from her, hands trembling under the table, while she said things like, "We can't control what people say online, but we have to protect the company's reputation." I said, "So you're going to fire me because I won't cut my own body open again for someone who betrayed me?" She didn't answer directly, just gave me this sympathetic look and said, "It might be best to take an unpaid leave." I walked out before she could finish the sentence. That night, I deleted all my social media. Facebook, Instagram, everything. I wiped my digital life clean, but the internet never forgets. My name still floated around in half-true stories, twisted screenshots, and comment sections filled with strangers debating whether or not I deserved hell. And somewhere in all of that noise, I found something unexpected: peace. I realized that no one could really understand what it meant to live through what I did. No one but me. So I stopped trying to explain. I stopped defending myself. Around that time, Emily's mother emailed me. Not to guilt trip this time. It was short. "She's in hospice now," she wrote. "She wanted to talk to you. Said she owes you an apology." I stared at the screen for a long time. My chest tightened, not out of anger, but out of something heavier. A kind of grief that didn't have a name. Because a part of me still remembered her as the girl who stayed up late watching old sitcoms with me on the couch, who fell asleep with her head on my chest, who told me she wanted to start a family someday. And now she was dying. I didn't respond right away. For 3 days, I wrestled with it. I'd stand in the shower and imagine walking into that room, seeing her frail, hooked up to tubes, hearing her voice tremble as she said sorry. Then I'd remember her Facebook post, her laughing face next to the nurse's arm around her. The months I spent as a pariah while she let people believe I was the one who left. By the 4th day, I sent one line back. "I hope she finds peace." No more. No less. 2 weeks later, she passed. Her obituary didn't mention me. It said she was survived by her loving partner, Matthew. I didn't go to the funeral, but I did drive out to the lake we used to visit on weekends. I sat there in my car, watching the water ripple under the evening sun, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel angry, just tired. Because in the end, I realized that sometimes closure doesn't look like forgiveness. It looks like choosing yourself, even when the world calls it selfish. After Emily died, I thought that was it. The end. The noise would fade, people would move on, and I could finally breathe again. But that's not how real life works. When someone dies, the story doesn't end. It just changes shape. For about a month, everything went quiet. The protesters disappeared, my inbox stopped buzzing, and her family stopped calling. I started going out again, cautiously, early morning walks, late night grocery runs. I'd catch people staring sometimes, whispering, but it wasn't like before. The world had moved on to new scandals. Then one afternoon, about 6 weeks after her funeral, I got a call from a lawyer. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, voice flat but polite. "I'm contacting you regarding the estate of Emily Harper." I froze. "What about it?" "She left something for you," he said. "A letter. It's sealed and marked confidential." I don't know what I expected. Maybe anger. Maybe some kind of final jab from beyond the grave. But I went. Curiosity is a cruel thing. It eats at you no matter how much you tell yourself to let go. The law office was downtown, one of those sterile, glass-heavy places that smell like disinfectant and stress. The lawyer handed me a single envelope. No big ceremony, no dramatic reading, just a quiet exchange. When I got home, I sat on my couch staring at it for a long time before I finally tore it open. Her handwriting hit me first. I hadn't seen it in years. Loopy, slightly uneven, always slanting downward like she was in a hurry. "Ben, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and I'm guessing you didn't come to the funeral. I don't blame you. I don't even know if you'll read all of this. But I needed to say some things I should have said a long time ago. First, I know I hurt you. I don't mean the cheating or the lies, even though those were bad enough. I mean what came after. The way I let people believe you left me when I was sick. I was angry. Not at you, but at myself. You gave me something I didn't deserve, and instead of facing that, I turned you into the villain. It made it easier to hate you than to admit what I'd done. I don't expect forgiveness. But I do want you to know that before I died, I told the truth. To my family, to the doctors, to the people who asked. I told them what you did for me, what I took from you, and what I did with it. I don't know if that changes anything, but maybe it helps a little. And for what it's worth, I never stopped loving you. Not even when I was trying my hardest to make you disappear from my life. You gave me 2 more years. I wasted them. But I want you to have this one thing. I asked my lawyer to make sure you got the truth from me in my own words. I'm sorry, Ben. You didn't deserve any of it. Love, always, Emily. I read it twice, then 3 times. By the fourth, my hands were shaking so hard I dropped it. It wasn't closure, not really. It wasn't redemption either. It was just human, flawed, messy, real. The way people actually are when the masks finally come off. I should have felt vindicated, but instead, I felt this ache in my chest that I couldn't shake. Because even after everything, after the lies, the humiliation, the way she'd ruined me publicly, some part of me still cared. That's the sick thing about love. It lingers. A week later, another twist. The same lawyer called me again. There's something else, he said. She listed you as her secondary next of kin for medical release records. The hospital wants your consent to publish a memorial case study about her transplant history. I didn't even know what to say. They wanted to publish it. My name, my medical info, everything. I told them no. But then I got curious. I requested the file myself, just to see what was in it. When it came in the mail, I went through the pages slowly. Lab reports, post-op notes, and then one entry, written by her doctor about 6 months before she passed. Patient expressed deep remorse regarding prior public statements about donor. States original donor provided first kidney. Relationship ended following infidelity. Patient attempted to correct record publicly, but was advised against engaging media. That line, advised against engaging media, hit me hard. I realized she probably tried to make things right, but the world wasn't interested in the truth anymore. It already had its villain and its victim. It's strange how people only love tragedy when it fits a certain script. After that, I started going to therapy. Not because of Emily exactly, but because I realized I'd built my life around bitterness. My therapist asked me once, "What would forgiveness look like for you?" And I didn't have an answer. Because forgiveness isn't the same as trust. It's not saying what they did was okay. It's just deciding that it doesn't get to own you anymore. A few months after that, something unexpected happened. A small news outlet, one of those independent ones, published an article titled "The Other Side of a Viral Story." It was about me. Not sensationalized. Not dramatic. Just factual. They'd spoken to one of Emily's old co-workers who confirmed everything. The transplant, the affair, the lies. For the first time, the internet didn't have claws. The comments were different. People saying things like, "Wow, that poor guy," or "Imagine giving someone a kidney and being treated like that." I didn't share it. I didn't gloat. But I read it once, smiled a little, and closed the tab. That was enough. Over time, the noise faded completely. People forgot my name, the way the internet always does. I moved to a new city, started a new job, met new people who didn't know my past. I told no one about Emily, not because I was ashamed anymore, but because I didn't need to carry her story like a scar. Still, sometimes when I wake up early, there's this weird, quiet moment, before the world starts buzzing, where I think about her. Not the version from the headlines. Not the one hooked up to machines. The one sitting across from me in the cafeteria years ago, teasing me for drinking black coffee, her eyes full of life. That's the version I choose to remember now. It's been a little over 2 years since Emily died, and I thought that chapter of my life was sealed shut. I moved to Chicago, got a new job at a facilities firm, started keeping my world smaller, tighter. No social media, no unnecessary drama. I worked, came home, hit the gym, cooked dinner, and that was enough. Peace, I've learned, doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it just feels quiet. But peace doesn't last forever. It never does. It started one Friday evening after work. I was at the grocery store, debating between 2 brands of pasta sauce, when I heard someone say my name. "Ben." I turned around and nearly dropped the jar. It was Matt, the nurse. Her nurse. The guy she cheated with. He looked different. Older, heavier around the eyes. There was a split second where neither of us said anything. Just stood there surrounded by the hum of refrigerators and the soft music playing overhead. He spoke first. "I didn't think you'd recognize me." I wanted to say something cutting, something to remind him exactly who he was to me. But I just nodded once. I remember. He swallowed hard. Can we talk for a second? Everything in me screamed no. But curiosity, that same cruel curiosity that made me open Emily's letter, wouldn't let me walk away. So we sat down at one of those little cafe tables near the front of the store, surrounded by people who had no idea how much history was sitting in front of them. He started slow. I don't expect you to believe me, but I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him. He rubbed his face. You probably think I'm the worst kind of person. And honestly, you'd be right. What we did was disgusting. I was her nurse, man. I should have known better. But she was scared, and I. Don't. I cut him off. Don't make excuses. He nodded. You're right. Then he told me something I didn't expect. He said that after I left, after the transplant, Emily had a breakdown. Apparently, she'd tried to cut things off with him a few times, said she felt guilty, said she'd ruined her life. But he'd convinced her that what they had was real. And when the news came out about you refusing to donate again, he said, I wanted to defend you. I swear I did. But her mom, her family, they said it would look bad, that it would confuse people. I let them control the narrative because I didn't want to be hated too. He looked up, eyes red. And I still am. People found out after she died. About me. About us. I lost my license. I can't work in healthcare anymore. For a second, I didn't know how to feel. There was a grim kind of justice in it, but it didn't make me happy. It didn't fix anything. He reached into his jacket and slid something across the table, a small envelope. This was hers, he said. She wrote it for you, but she never mailed it. I found it going through her stuff after she passed. I wasn't sure if you'd want it. I didn't touch it. Why now? He hesitated. Because I've been sober for 6 months. Because I'm trying to clean up what I can before I disappear completely. And because she talked about you every single day before she died. Even when she was barely awake, she said your name. He stood, left a 20 on the table for his coffee, and walked away. I sat there staring at the envelope. Part of me wanted to throw it out right there, but I didn't. I took it home. When I finally opened it, the paper inside was wrinkled, like she'd started and stopped writing it a dozen times. Ben, I don't know if this will ever reach you. You probably don't want to hear from me, and I don't blame you. But I wanted you to know something that's been eating at me since the day you walked out of that hospital room. You weren't just my donor. You were my reason. The reason I fought to live, even when I didn't deserve to. I ruined everything good between us, and I've been trying to find a way to forgive myself ever since. But I can't. You saved my life once. The second time, I wanted to ask not because I thought I deserved it, but because I wanted to see you again, even if it was just to say goodbye. If you said no, and I'm guessing you did, it's okay. You owed me nothing. You gave me more than anyone ever has. I'm sorry that my love came with so much damage attached. I wish I could have been better for you. Maybe in another life. I folded the letter and sat in silence for a long time. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even closure. It was just the final echo of something that used to be love, now just fading sound. Over the next few weeks, I kept thinking about her. Not the sick version. Not the liar or the victim or the media headline. Just the girl from the beginning. The one who used to sit on the floor with me at midnight eating cold pizza and talking about the future. And for the first time, I didn't feel bitter. I felt sad, but it was a clean kind of sadness. The kind that comes when you finally accept that you can't rewrite what's already been lived. One evening, I took both letters, hers from the lawyer and the one from Matt, and went back to that same lake. The same place where I'd gone after her funeral. I sat there until the sun went down, the water turning gold and then black. Then I lit the edges of the letters and let them burn. The ashes floated into the wind, scattering over the surface of the lake. It wasn't dramatic. No tears, no big emotional release. Just quiet. A stillness that finally felt like peace. Before I left, I said something out loud, softly, like maybe she could still hear it somehow. I hope you found peace, Emily. I finally did. Then I turned, got in my truck, and drove home. And that was the first time in years I slept through the night without dreaming of hospitals, or headlines, or apologies that came too late. Because sometimes, the most merciful thing you can do, for them, for yourself, is to walk away for good. If you made it all the way to the end, thanks for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. It helps me share more stories like this. Thanks.